It's raining, it's pouring, and the old man is snoring. Today, I turned 25 years old, and my life begins now. Over the past 12 months, but more specifically the last 3 months, I've been learning 3 specific things that have truly been able to help me change the direction of my life. When I was a lot younger, I think when I was 16 or 17, I told my father that I would be a millionaire by the time that I am 25. So I have, I think, another 11 months and 29 days to make that promise come true. And I have a feeling that we're on pretty good pace. I'm not too worried about that. However, I would like to share these 3 lessons with you because I don't want you to live another day of your life without knowing these things that could help you save a lot of time, trouble, trauma, and have you just enjoying your life a lot more. You know, having fun is such an essential component to living a good life, and I feel like a lot of us just don't kind of do that, and I feel like that's a shame. So I would definitely like to, create more of that for everybody. The first thing that I would say that is super important for you to do, and for myself, it was just absolutely pivotal, was to define what success looks like in your life. Now, a definition is not a non-definition. Okay? I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm just sharing from my own experience. Saying to yourself that you don't want to work a 9 to 5 is not you defining what success looks like. Success is something that's very clear. It's something that is vivid. It is something that you can tap into. And the best kind of success is really one that you can feel before it happens. Kobe Bryant would always say, I visualized it so much in my mind that when it's here, I'm not even surprised. So that's kind of how the process works. However, what I would say is that you need to be very clear on what success looks like in your life. And that was something that I started to do very recently. And I learned by really getting burned. I have the honor of being friends with people who make ridiculous amounts of money. I have a friend of mine who last month collected $200,000 in a month. That's insane. Shout out to you, Sandy. And I have other friends who, just bought a Lamborghini last week. I've always been surrounded by people who have been very, very well off. And because I would, naturally spend so much time around these people or consume a lot of their content and be in their spaces, I thought to myself that what they had was what I wanted. And that's not true. What I want now, after thinking about it and actually asking myself the question, is freedom. Money is not really the thing that I'm after. It's freedom. When I sat down and asked myself, what is it that I truly want? I said to myself, I want a lifestyle where I live in my country, a dream country, for 6 months of the year. I live in another country, maybe with my homies, with my brothers, for another 4 months of the year. And then for the last 2 months of the year, I'm spending them around my family or in the States. And if I look at my life right now, that's what I've been able to actually cultivate without even being aware of it. For the past 7 months, I've been traveling. I went to 8 different countries. 8 different countries. Japan, Saudi Arabia. I went to the Netherlands, China, Brazil, Argentina. I went to France, Portugal, and now I'm currently in Brazil. And I'm in my dream country that I've dreamed about for years and years and years. And I'm finally here. And for the first time ever, I've felt the joy of being in a place that I've dreamed of for so long. But because of the way that I defined success in my life for the longest period of my life, these moments right here, I wouldn't have truly been able to enjoy them because I didn't think that's what success was. So it's really important, I would say to you, is that you want to define what success looks like in your life. So be clear about it. Like, how much money do you need to make a month? Or not need to make, but would you prefer to make? What does your lifestyle look like? Who are you spending time with? Right? How many hours a day are you working? I've changed my entire schedule now for work to where I'm only speaking with people 3 times a week. And then the first day of the week, I'm not speaking with anybody. I'm just exclusively working on the business. And then the last day of the week, which is Friday, I save that time for prayer and devotion. And then the middle 3 days of the week, I'm like really nose to the grindstone. And I love this schedule because it allows me to really allow the creative juices to flow. And I hope that you can find a balance like that for yourself as well. So that's number 1. And I really wish I was able to go outside and walk, but unfortunately it's like super, super rainy here. Let me just kind of turn the camera over. You guys will see the weather is not super great here in Brazil. Even though it is a tropical paradise right now, it is not looking like that. The second thing that I would say that is super important for you to be aware of is so much of your success is going to be dictated by something that's called the emotional signature. There is an inner child that lives within you, and that child feels the world through your hands, sees the world through your eyes, experiences the food, through your tongue, lives life through this big body that you have right now. And that inner child is responsible for so much of what you allow into your life because they're so closely related and tied to your nervous system. If you don't create an environment of safety for this inner child, where you're constantly trying to understand him or her, you're constantly trying to create an environment where they can express themselves and they can flourish, then you will always find that there is a blockage that exists in your life. Remember, this is not me preaching at you. This is me just sharing an experience. For the longest time in my business, I'll share an experience where my business is on average doing anywhere about $18,000 to $22,000 a month, so about $20,000 a month. And I can't seem to break past this ceiling. And I was just kind of wondering, dude, why can't I break past the ceiling? And I was thinking about it, and then one day the thought hit me. I'm afraid to make more money than my dad. Because I've seen my dad, and he works his ass off, he works his tail off. He is doing incredible things for the family. However, the thought of me traveling, enjoying my life, seeing the world, experiencing all these different things, and not working as hard as my father did or does, feels weird to me. So I tapped into this feeling by just creating a space in the day where I just only chat to my inner child. I only talk to him and say, hey bro, look, why don't you tell me what's happened? Why don't you tell me what's on your mind? And more often than not, I find that my inner child just really needs me. He doesn't need, candy. He doesn't need, a tricycle. He doesn't need anything like that. What he needs is really presence. He needs me to create space to be with him. And through doing that, I was able to learn so much about the underlying beliefs that I had, which really controlled my life and my external success. And I recognized that one day when I, held the space for him, he said, hey bro, look, I'm afraid to make more money than Bubba because Bubba works so hard and I don't feel right making more money than somebody who works so hard and has sacrificed so much for me. That conversation led to a conversation with my father, and my father broke it down for me beautifully. He said, Yusuf, that's the furthest thing from the truth. When I first came to America, I was making significantly more money than my father. I made what he made in a year in just a couple of hours. And this is the natural progression of life. And as a father, I'm proud that my son is doing well. I'm proud that you are in a position where you're doing well financially and that you're able to take care of yourself. Just please take care of yourself. And having that moment from my father, which stemmed from this moment now of my inner child bringing it up to me, is creating the shift where making so much more money feels safe. It feels like it's something that I can go after without having any sort of qualms, any sort of problems. So I would invite you to try and cultivate a similar space for yourself in your life, right? What is it that your inner child or your nervous system is trying to tell you about the things that you're doing? So many of the problems that we experience are problems that are experienced within the body, but we're trying to solve them within the mind. And it just naturally doesn't make sense. It's si je suis en train de parler français avec toi, c'est pas possible pour toi de me comprendre. If you don't speak French, you're not able to really understand what it is that I'm saying, and you can't solve the problem that I'm giving you. And that's exactly how it works within the body, where the body speaks one language, feelings, the mind speaks another language, thoughts. So you want to make sure that you're able to use that language when solving this problem, use this language when solving that problem. All right? And finally, the last tool that I could give you to really help you to create leaps and bounds in your life is to use leverage. There's a beautiful quote from an author that I've started to read and digest a lot more from, and his name is Naval Ravikant. And he says this beautiful quote that says, "Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I will move the earth." Now, what that means is that if you are able to use your skill sets to the best of your ability, you are able to create incredible waves of progress in life. And this is so true. this past, 4 to 6 weeks, I've been experiencing 4 big problems within my business. Content creation, lead generation, my actual offer, and then back-end automations. Now, if I tried to solve all these problems at once by myself, I would collapse. And that's what I tried to do for the first 4 weeks. And then I started to recognize something. Yusuf, you have a really good skill set in marketing, consulting, advertising, and coming up with creative projects. So why don't we just focus on all of those elements in those 4 problems, and then the rest of those other problems, the rest of those, elements in the problems, we're going to delegate them to somebody else, or we're going to delegate them to AI. And doing so created such a big, reservoir of energy. It cleared so much confusion and, obstacles and blockages in my life. And what remained was such an excess amount of energy that I was able to utilize and create waves of progress that I didn't even think were possible. I say this to you for a reason. You have a skill set that other people can look at you and be like, dude, how is he able to do that for hours and hours on end and it be so effortless? You need to tap into that skill set and solve problems using that skill set. Use that skill set right there to create leverage in your life. And for everything else that doesn't revolve around that skill set, what you need to do is outsource, delegate, use AI, right? Be creative. You have an incredible creative reservoir that is not being utilized. And when it finally will be utilized, your life will change dramatically. So my camera's at 1%. Thank you guys so much for the birthday wishes. 25 years old. I'm just excited to be alive. I'm excited to be here. Excited to have more fun. I'll see you guys. Be sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 100,000 followers or subscribers. That too. I'll see you guys. Peace.